Great. Welcome to week dose. We're already on week two. How crazy is this? And we are on, it's Thursday. To remember what day it is. It's Thursday. So this is going to be a great day. We are going to talk about how the body responds to external circumstances in physical ways, in thoughts, in spiritual contexts. And so we're going to dive into that today. So I'm really excited that you're here and listening on in. If you're here live, thanks, Taylor. What's up? How's it going? And if you're watching the recording, sweet, let me know what you think in the comments and we can keep talking about this. So today we are going to be working with this book right here, Healing Trauma. And we're talking about the trained brain and trauma. So when we talk about trauma, it's just an experience and not saying that it wasn't traumatic. It's whatever your experience is for you. It's not going to be replicated by anybody else. So your experiences are your own. They can't be replicated by anyone else. So your emotions that you had during that experience have been imprinted on you. So here's a good example. Imagine driving in a car and then you get in an accident, which maybe you've been in a car accident. And you know that sensation that you feel when you get hit from behind or hit from somebody and you feel like your whole body tenses up, this whole jerking movement happens. So that has just been imprinted onto your body, just as it does every single day. Things that we do throughout the day are imprinted onto our body, onto our nervous system, into our DNA, into our cells, which is so cool, right? So every time that we might be in a situation while we're driving, whether it's at a stoplight or we sense some form of not safeness, unsafeness, then our body is going to just automatically respond to that. So you might not even have a threat and your body's going to be like, right? And so this happens very commonly in healthcare professionals, especially nurses. We get this freeze response, and it usually comes from just being re-traumatized over and over, and then not becoming aware that that's how you're feeling in that moment. So we're going to take a moment and we're going to just kind of go back into our body here. So wherever you are, if you want to take a moment to close your eyes, soften your gaze, take your gaze down. We're just going to check back in with our breath. So anytime that we're coming back to our body, the first thing is just to check in with your body, your breath, and just notice it. And maybe adjust if you'd like to, maybe lengthen the breath or take the breath a little bit deeper into the body. And so here we are in this present moment. We're neither in the past or the future. And it should feel pretty neutral. It shouldn't feel stressful. It shouldn't feel lonely. It shouldn't feel really anything. It should just feel like, I'm here. I'm here now. Like there's nothing happening in the past or the future. So taking another nice deep breath in, just being here in this present moment and exhaling and just allowing yourself to know that you're not broken. Everything around you is just in response to traumas or experiences, good, bad, or indifferent, that have been accumulated within your body. So the next time you have an experience, it is coming from a place that has been created in your mind and body of how you're going to respond to that trauma or that situation again. And go ahead and take a nice deep breath in. Exhale, release. And open your eyes, wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, and just come back to the present moment yet again, right? And so it's really interesting that every single moment of the day, we are responding in a way that's built from experiences from our past. That's why when we are meeting new people, we are bringing experiences from our past into that present moment, and we're judging or we're moving through that experience with another person based off of the past. And so we are talking about bodily confused today, and hyperarousal and hypoarousal. So the two books is this Healing Trauma, like I said, and then this one as well. These printouts, it's the experience log. These printouts are in the course. So in this book right here, you're going to go ahead and just turn the page. And we're going to talk about tracking the body checklist. So, why is this important, not only in nursing, but for ourselves? We are communicators, and about 70 to 80% of our communication is actually nonverbal. So, we are always scanning, we are always looking for communication to either validate us or invalidate us. And then we move accordingly through that communication based off our past experiences, right? So if you had parents that were like, you're not good enough, you're not going to amount to anything, you suck, you're horrible, I don't want you, that's like really hurtful, right? And so that might show up again when you are trying to form relationships in grown up life, right? And you might have a boss that says the same thing. You might kind of like coward and come down to a really tiny ball because you're bringing your past experiences of when your parents did that to you into the now, and you're relating that person treating you that way to your parents, and it's kind of sandwiching you. And you're probably asking yourself, like, why do I deserve this? It's because it's a repetitive cycle and you haven't dealt with that situation yet or even acknowledged it, right? Acknowledging it is the first way to get through a trauma or a situation that we no longer want to write in our story, right? You know, having a whole heck of a list of diagnoses, do you want to identify with all those diagnoses? You know, it's really interesting, especially when I have patients that have blood pressure stuff going on and they have high blood pressure, they're taking medication, and so their blood pressure now is in normal ranges. So I've asked them the question, do you still have high blood pressure? And they're like, well, no, because when I do the reading, it says 120 over 81 or 82 or whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay. But are you still doing the same things that you did before when you had high blood pressure, but now you just have a medication to take care of it? And they were like, well, yeah. Like I'm not exercising, I'm not eating right, I'm not meditating, I'm not doing anything really good for my body. So I'm like, okay, so do you still have high blood pressure? And they were like, yeah, I guess I just feel it different ways, right? So the body's always going to be speaking to us. It's going to negate if you are using a medication to treat something, it's obviously going to take it down, but how is it affecting our internal system? So the body is always talking. And like I said last on Tuesday, we gave two books. One is "You're Not the Placebo" by Joe Dispenza, and then "The Body Keeps Score," which I highly suggest reading both of those or just chat GPTing the summaries. Like I do so much for research. So tracking the body checklist. So it talks about posture, tensions, eyes, facial expression, gesture, movement, voice, speech, and breath and presence, which I find this to be very cool and helpful. And especially if you've worked in mental health, we have something very similar to this upon admission. And it's interesting to read over this list because it gives you a really good indication of how your own body posturing is in different situations. So the next time that you're in excited mode and you're happy and joyful, notice how your body posture is. Notice how your body posture is, right? So some of the posturing is upright, collapse, shoulders back, shoulders forward, slumped, tight and stiff, expanded and puffy through the chest, holds arms and legs like this, curved spine, legs tucked, crossed, expressive, lots of moving, pulled in or contracted. So those are all the ways that we display our posture, right? So at this moment, check your posture, right? Notice if your shoulders are neutral. Sometimes our shoulders might be more forward. So you can even feel your shoulder blades, just kind of move that shoulders forward here and notice how that compresses the chest area. Now pull the shoulders back and down. And this will get you more into a neutral state because naturally your shoulders will start to kind of move forward, resting in a more neutral state. So if you ever feel constricted, if you ever feel overwhelmed in your body, take a moment to notice where your shoulders are. They're probably come forward and they're constricting your heart center, constricting the flow of energy through your whole entire body. Our chi, right, as we know from Chinese medicine. So noticing the body posturing throughout the day, noticing where your hands are. I'm a hand talker. We know this situation. Noticing where your hands are, right? What are the hand posturings? We know there's various hand posturings, right, in yoga, and they mean various different things. And you can use hand posturing to help remove or create flow in the body as well. So posturing is very important when we're looking at our clients during coaching sessions. If I have a client that's looking down, over, away, not looking directly at me, first of all, I need to check to see if this is something cultural. I can't just assume that they're being disrespectful, which we do so much in America. Like, you're not giving me eye contact. That's disrespectful. Like, no, bish, that's my culture. like, like stop being so one-minded, right? So come in with curiosity. Hey, I see that your eyes are darting around the room right now. What's going on in your body? And they're going to be like, huh? I don't even know because this is what's currently happening because they're searching for safety. So, how can we make people feel safe is to first help them recognize that they're even unsafe. If you don't know you're unsafe, you can't get to a safe area, right? That's for everything, like natural disasters and everything, your body cues. So, if you're not safe, you can't get to a safe area. So, just by saying, "Hey, I see that your eyes are darting around the room. What are you feeling in your body? What's going on in your body? What are you noticing?" And usually they're kind of taken back at the first time because they haven't been able to or even asked that question before of like what's going on in your body. And so many of the time we push our actual physical symptomology away that we don't even notice that it's connected to our emotional nervous system, like the stomach upsets that you might get, or the tightness in your throat when you're talking, or the heaviness in your chest when you might be entering a job or a family's home, right? These are all cues our body is saying to us all the time. Our senses, we don't give them enough credit for, but our body, literally in our external circumstances, wherever you are in this moment, is currently getting clues and cues to help you respond or react, depending on the situation, right? So the body is always trying to find places to feel safe and to be safe. So it's important to start learning about these body cues so you can help yourself know if you are safe or not safe. So the next page, we talk about tracking for trauma clues and cues. I like to call them clues because they give me a good indication of what's happening with your nervous system. And so when we track the body for information, we want to basically search or find to notice if trauma is present in the current moment. So hyperarousal cues can look like eyes widening, like widening really big. You might see this on your cat. Eye searching and scanning. So currently scanning for vigilance and things that might be a threat. Eye contact, direct and threatening. Eye contact sustained with conflicting emotions like staring or staring off into space. Eye contact with confused look or a deer in the headlights as we know it as, right? So skin could be flushed, sweat pearls on forehead, tingling sensations on skins, might report pins and needles. Skin appears patchy, maybe red blotches on neck or chest and or parts of the face. Client self-reports hot and itchy skin. And so sometimes I notice if I'm talking about something that's very close to my heart or something that I feel a little bit more uncomfortable about, I tend to kind of get redness right here and right here. And so, just notice that as you go about your day or, the next week, notice if you get reddening on your body. And if you do, that's a good indication that trauma is kind of popping up in your body. And especially if you're getting it around the throat area, that is the throat chakra. So your throat chakra is kind of being initiated into opening up when we get redness around the throat. And it usually means you're either uncomfortable or on a positive note, that you're actually passionate and really excited to what you're speaking about. It also means that you might be a little unsure, and because you've been quieted for so long by society or your family, significant others, that this also is a reminder. The reddening is a reminder like, hey, you have a voice. And so our bodies kind of highlight that area like, hey, like keep going, you have a voice. So notice this redness or the red areas that pop up on our body as you're communicating with others. Emotions could be anger flashes or irritation, crying easily, emotional affect, high and quickly aroused, jumpy, jittery, looks nervous, vigilant to every sound in the room or every movement in the room. The body could be reporting inner heat rising in the body, clammy hands, sweating, ringing in the ears, report taste changes, mind memory loss, mind races, attention is hyper focused, reports intrusive memories or imagery. So those are hyper arousal cues or clues, and you can often find those in yourself in different situations. So if you've ever noticed that, go ahead and let me know if you're live on here, if you want to share a time that you've noticed your own body cues. Let me know. And if you're watching this on a recording, go ahead and drop body cues or clues that you've also noticed in yourself. Because when we start to notice these, we can really start to help our patients learn what the situation at hand might be, right? Because we remember we're not broken, we're not coming from a place of brokenness. And um, earlier today, I was listening to a podcast, and the person said, say that, I believe I am capable. I wrote it down of anything. I am capable of anything. You are capable of literally anything, but it's that belief. And it's okay to fully step into your power and your gifts. But when we have these body cues, it's important to notice these body cues. So, have you noticed body cues? And if so, let me know what those body cues are.
I get all kinds of body cues.
Oh, yeah? Tell us about them.
I think the one that gets me the most is the overwhelm, like what it feels like to have overwhelm. And it's like exactly what you were saying earlier about just like the freeze, like too much going on in my brain, and it's just like I get overwhelmed and I just freeze. I cannot, and my body just can't move forward.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting. How do you end up getting out of that, or what do you find yourself doing to kind of move
That's a good
through that?
question. Generally, I'm like, okay, yes, you have a lot going on. We just need to get it out of your head. Yes, you have a lot going on. Just you need to get it out of your head. And until I actually sit down and either record everything that's in my mouth, like in my brain, just say it out loud, or I write it down, I really can't get out of it.
Wow.
And so it's just like, how miserable do you want to be? Like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, it's like, okay,
yeah,
just get the thing done. Like, you have to download so you can move forward. And generally, when I download it, I'm like, okay, which is the most reasonable to start with? And I can get myself back to action again. But yeah, thankfully I know the process, I guess.
yeah, yeah. You do. Yeah, you totally do because you recognize that you're overwhelmed. And you even say, like, I see that you're overwhelmed. Like you're
Yeah.
talking to yourself, right? Like, hey, self, hey, soul, like I see you're overwhelmed. And let's figure it out together. And then that's when you write it out or you download. So
Yeah. And even
yeah,
just
that's
like
amazing.
now, just like as I'm transitioning forward, just celebrating the opportunity to be overwhelmed. Because they're all good things, right? They're not like I'm not overwhelmed because of terrible things. I'm overwhelmed with all the good. So
Yeah,
that's, it's just trying to hero
yeah.
mode.
Yeah, hero mode. I love that. Yeah, absolutely. And I think you make such a good point is looking at from a lens of, positive overwhelmingness or excitedness, right? Because overwhelmingness, so much of the time, it could be excitedness, but our default is to return back to that feeling of overwhelmed, of being a problem situation rather than a good, healthy, like exciting, like I'm moving on up, right? Situation. So yeah, so I love that. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I think that's such a great skill. So if anybody is, feeling overwhelmed and needs to get it out, write it down and get it out, right? And it doesn't mean like you have to act on all those things, right? Because our thoughts are always coming into us, but I feel like sometimes they get to be like, I'm trying to think of the movie. Is it called The End of the World? Where all the Teslas just like started driving into each other. I'm trying to think of the movie. But that's
Yeah.
sometimes what the brain does. It just like drives all these Teslas are all like piled up and it's like
Yeah.
all of our thoughts, and
Yeah,
it's
it's kind of
not.
funny because I don't know if I've ever thought about it like that, like what you're saying in the sense of I think the reason why the overwhelm is associated with negative is because I thought every thought I had to be an action. And I
Mm,
don't know if I like really put that together until right now because we've been talking about that. But yeah, like it's like overwhelm was associated with negative because I used to have all these great ideas, but I never did anything with them. Where
yeah.
now I can be like, okay, I don't have to do anything with them. I just need to get them out of my head. And what I'm supposed to be doing, I will do. Like, it's like just a different perspective, I guess. It's kind of
Yeah.
different.
Yeah, that's super cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've totally been there where it's been so overwhelming and it's like, oh, I have to do all these things, but it's like, no, you get to do all these things if you want. Like it's an option. But you don't have to take the mission at hand. So, yeah, so hyperarousal is really important to understand in our own body and that really does kind of come in the form of it could be excitedness, or it could be nervousness, or it could be overwhelm. Those all three kind of coincide together. And so when we're looking at hypoarousal cues, we're looking at the eyes dull and withdrawn. They have a blank fixed stare. Maybe they roll into the back of the head. They're kind of taking peeks, but they're not scanning. Right. So they might be engaged, but then they might be like this. I notice that I do that myself, especially if I'm in a large area with a lot of people. And, I think that just comes from being around, we've been through that whole 9/11 thing. And I think just as a society, we are just all naturally scanning sometimes, like, is there a threat? I mean, with the amount of school shootings, the mall, I mean, everything, right? Our bodies are just naturally kind of in this like fight or flight stance when we go out into public areas. So, so notice that about yourself. Notice if you're eating dinner and you're with a crowd or you're in a gathering place, notice if you're looking over your shoulder. Notice if you're like looking at the door, you know. Um, and if you feel safe, it's important to say, like, hey, body, I feel safe right now. There's no need to scan for safety. And like Taylor said, she says like, I feel overwhelmed right now. I see that you're overwhelmed. So even saying that self, like, I see that you're safe right now. There's no need to scan. You are safe. And it's just kind of coming back to that inner child or those experiences in our past that are coming into the present moment that our body so wants to honor, but we're not going to honor that because it was part of our past and we're trying to recreate and make new neural circuits. So becoming aware is that first step. Not only for alcoholics, but for us as well, right? Like it's, I think it's so interesting. It's taught in AA, the 12 steps, but really we can use those 12 steps like throughout our life. It's so interesting how that coincides. So definitely learn more about those 12 steps. It's crazy how it transfers over. But the skin gets pale, cold sweat, client reports lightness, or maybe even feeling like they're going to pass out. They might have a flat effect. Feelings are disconnected from the body, can't report sensations, reports being blank or nothing. And so you might have had some patients in your nursing career that you are like, how are you feeling right now? And they're like, I don't feel anything. Or they're just like giving you the stare down. And so they are actually in a hypoarousal state. So the nervous system is almost come to the point that it's so overwhelmed, and now it's kind of come around full circle, and it's shutting down, or it has shut down. Body quality and body tone is held or lifeless. Restricted body motions, crying, collapsed body, belly or chest. Reports body numbness. Speech is might be repetitive with a flat tone or even listless. And then the mind is going to avoid painful memories, attention impairment, delayed response, memory loss, substantial time gaps. So, when do you think you've seen hypoarousal cues? Um, have you noticed that in patients before, Taylor, those hypoarousal cues?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I know it's really interesting because if you look at traumatic situations. So when we have people come into the emergency room or to the hospital after a mass cash. So when I was in the Air Force, we did a lot of exercises with state, local government agencies to see what a mass casualty would look like, right? And this
Hmm.
happened, I was in the Air Force right after 9/11. So this was like a huge thing that we did. And we really focused on the cues that were patients were giving us. So we would know if they were in a hyperarousal or a hypoarousal state. And that really contributed to where they were on the spectrum in regards to shock. Like usually when you first come upon a scene, especially all these things that are happening, when you come upon a scene, so currently we're looking at the survivors of all of the houses that have been demolished in LA. Now, all those people are going currently through a very traumatic process, including shock. And at first, they might have had some hypoarousal cues, right? Just like lifeless, like the holy shit look, like I can't believe this is happening. And their whole life kind of flashes before them. Then we have the hyper arousal, and this tends to start kind of happening after. It could be a couple hours after, it could be a couple days after, but people tend to go in a hyper arousal state after that initial shock symptoms occur. And so we can kind of see these hypo and hyper arousal states all throughout our lifetime if we have not become aware of them. And it occurs quite a bit. And so you'll see it, just start noticing people in your own environment or when you're out and about, you'll start noticing that we all have some sort of hypo or hypoarousal arousal cues that are currently interacting with our environment. Emotion could be flat affect, obviously. And then I talked about the blank or nothing. And this is really important to address these type of clients that are saying, I'm not feeling anything, because that's initial shock. And, this is why it's really important to have nurses in police stations, interacting with police, going on rides with police, because nurses can directly see if somebody's in a state of shock and communicate with them effectively rather than being like, what's going on? Why did you do this? Because that's so often the approach that we see, unfortunately, um, you know, with people that might not be trained in some sort of therapeutic communication, right? And that's not helpful when you're in a state of shock, for sure. So the next part is really important for clients, but also, this is all for us as well, is tracking my body. So it looks like my body part to work with is blank today. The way I view my body is blank. After 5 days, summarize what you've learned. This chart provides you with visual aid and concentrated data about what happened as you place more awareness on your body in a sustained way. So, how do you feel about this body part now? What has changed? What changes in your awareness made the difference? Make a new statement about how you feel in this body part today. Now, this is not only helpful for those of us or those humans that might be dealing with like bulimia or anorexia, like body more dysmorphia, body situations that are medical medical collaborate has designed all these wonderful mental health disorders to go along with body dysmorphia. But a lot of it just comes back to becoming aware of our own body. We don't need to keep talking about our trauma. We need to actually dive into the body to see where these things are coming from because you are built in this moment from everything that's happened before you, right? So tracking your body is really important. So if you have a body part that you're just not feeling, you're just like, I don't like this part of myself. I don't like this part of myself. It's important to take a moment to write that down and write down why you view your body that way. It might be related to something that's happened in your past, obviously, or how your parents viewed their body, or your caregivers, how they viewed their body. And so this can dive into learning more awareness about your body. And this is really the first step to diving into changing your subconscious as well. Because when we learn and understand our body, we then have the ability to change things about our body. And I'm going to talk about the facial features here in just a moment in relation to healing from cycles. The next part, the next page, we have page 65 and 66 are tracking the body. And so on the left-hand side, it says how I think about my body part, how I feel about my body part, what triggered me today was, what helped was, I neglected my body in these ways today. I changed one thing today. I looked at my body and saw. When I closed my eyes and sensed my body, I noticed. And it just asks to do it for 5 days. But when you do it, it's pretty outstanding how it catches our thoughts, the thoughts that we might have about our body, that might not be very helpful, that we should reframe about our body. And so the next part, this is a nice way to kind of end the session either with a client. I suggest this even just being a session in itself. You can easily move through a 45, 60-minute session in just learning about their own body because it is not taught anywhere. We are not taught about our body. It's so fucked up. Befriending the body. All right, befriending the body. So this is basically to be kind to your body. I don't know. I think I have a filter or something's happening here. Befriending the body. And it says, notice your body right now. What are you noticing? How do you feel about your body? How friendly are you towards your body? What would you say? How would you describe your body in 3 words or phases? And so it's befriending the body, becoming a friend to your body. Are you a friend to your body? And then it just goes down through, like saying, I welcome you, I love you, I accept you for who you are. We're in this together, whatever you want to say to your body. So this is a really good way to get clients into even first just understanding that they have a body. Because a lot of people don't even realize that. The next tool, tool 29, is body awareness inventory. And then you can kind of move in through these body awareness tools. So you also have naming your present moment experience in your body, which is really cool. I do this with my kids quite a bit, and I do it with myself. And this is on page 87. But basically, it walks you through a moment with your body. So it says, right now I am feeling, and you put your emotion, and I am sensing in my body, blank, 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 at least 3 body sensations. I am curious about my body, blank, name one sensation. I'm connecting with what is my body, and I am learning that my body shows me. I am also noticing my breath is, and then you describe your breath, and I feel my overwhelmed body. I can say that now I am in its current moment or experience. So this is a really nice way just to take a moment to notice that maybe you have tension in your shoulders and you're like, huh, I'm just going to connect with that for a moment. Maybe it's because you're taking on a lot or you're having a heavy day, right? Our shoulders carry the weight of our stress. So if you feel heaviness in here, it's a good indication that you just need to take a moment, look at your life, notice where you have stress or notice things that aren't making you feel good and either remove them or deviate from the situation, right? Or rethink what needs to happen next for that situation. So those are some good resources for body awareness. And that is probably the number one goal at first with clients is to get them noticing that they even have a body because then they can connect with their breath. Then they can do all these other meditations and tracking that you're going to do with them. They're going to know that if they're having a sensation, they're going to know the sensation and they're going to know that it's response because of something that they have just experienced, right? Because our senses are always going. And so this brings me back to understanding the triune brain and trauma. So if we look at, I don't know what this, if you guys, if you guys bring this up, down here where it says fawn right here, this is really important to understand because many of the time nurses are in a fawn state. So fawn is the instinct to try to appease a threat by being submissive. Does that sound familiar, nurse? Sometimes, especially, we see this in the hospital very often. Nurses are people pleasing. We sometimes lack identity. That's why nurses are always like, I'm a nurse. I'm a nurse. Like, this is all I am. All I am is a nurse. This is what I do. This is I am. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, you are way more than that, right? So it's just identifying with like one thing or a lack of identity, overwhelmed, no boundaries, and codependency. Many of the time, we have codependency as a nurse on the hospital or the group that we're with. So we might even feel shame or guilt when we are called to come in for an extra shift, and then our boss is like, are you sure you can't come in?" Right? They like throw the guilt on you. Are you sure you can't cover for so and so? And it's like, no. But we still might feel that shame and guilt because we are in a fawn like presence with ourselves. So you all know we have fight or flight, but then we also have freeze and fawn. And so I'm going to just briefly talk about freeze and fawn because that's important to understand as well. So a freeze is the instinct to stay still and wait for danger to pass. And I know even as a nurse, as a new nurse, I used to do this. I used to be like, oh, like brace for the worst. As a new nurse, we have difficulty making decisions. We might disassociate and we might isolate because we feel like nobody really understands what's happening to us, although there's tons of nurses around us. And so the freeze and fawn is really important to understand because it's an extension of the fight or flight. And so, with all of these, when we understand our body cues, we can then come from a place of understanding. Is it a past experience or is it a present experience? So, I'm trying to think of an example here, but I want you to actually think of an example that you might have had recently where you were bringing your past experiences into the present moment. And from that present moment, you were actually aware that you were doing something that was totally related to a past experience, right? So you have a present moment and you're acting a certain way and you're like, oh wait, no, 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 no. This is not how I want to be anymore. This is not how I want to act anymore. So let me know, Taylor, if you're able to. Have you noticed that recently with yourself? If you want to chime in, if not, that's okay. And then those of you that are watching the recording, go ahead and write in the comments a time that you've noticed that you have been bringing your past into the present moment. Because when we do, we're either in fight or flight, freeze, or fawn. And in efforts to assure safety, basically the amygdala encodes the sensory information associated with dangers or threats. So it's imprinting on your brain every time you have a danger or a threat. And so that's why, the most significant part of an experience, of a traumatic experience, you're going to remember the most significant part, which is like the worst image. Emotions experienced in that event are also going to be imprinted on the body sensations. What did you feel in your body when the event happened? Right. So the amygdala encodes the implicit memory. So moving forward, when it feels or notices that threat, it's going to go ahead and have that same or similar experience to that first time you had that threat. So every time you have that threat from then and there on into the future, you will have a similar or exact same experience response to the threat that occurred in your past because your brain has just encoded all of that had happened in that experience, including your hormonal output, including how your cells are functioning, including all of the systems in your body and how they're functioning, because they all directly relate back to the nervous system. The nervous system is constantly sending out signals and messages to your body saying, hey, this is a threat. No, this is not a threat. Act accordingly. So that's going to be very important to understand as you move through yourself and the nervous system. So in this next area here, trauma and the nervous system, we're going to look at understanding trauma in the nervous system. You can look about the sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight response, and we just talked about hyperarousal. And it's interesting if we look at hyperarousal in a mental cognition sense in a healthcare setting, we might look at that as a symptomology of like PTSD, right? And so when our body kicks into high gear, we're going to have these hypervigilant states. You might even have a heightened startled reaction. So it's really important that you recognize that these states might be a hyperarousal situation. So if you've occurred abuse, either verbal or emotional, or your client has occurred that as well, they might be more hypervigilant to touch, right? So when somebody touches them, they might flinch all of a sudden because their body is responding to a past experience. All right. The next part is the nervous system, and we have the automatic nervous system. And then we go into understanding the ventral vagal and sympathetic, which is the fight or flight. But the ventral vagal is social entanglement. So it's basically the connection to the world and the people that are in it. And then the dorsal vagal state, which is also known as the free state, is when you're kind of with your despair and you're trying to escape. And so those are all in this workbook here. So take a look at that here today. And then I'd like you to also look at the nervous system as a house and then mapping your nervous system. So you can map your nervous system in the different various states from ventral vagal to sympathetic to dorsal vagal as well. And then next week, we'll go ahead and get into the polyvagal theory. It's one of my favorites. So we'll go ahead and get into that next week as well. Okay, let's go ahead and take a moment break here. We're going to take a mini meditation with some somatics. So go ahead and take a moment here to find your feet on the ground. Find your hands. You can place them on your lap. You can gently cross them at your waist here. We're going to take a moment just to take a deep breath in. Exhale out. And then inhale, again, bringing the arms up, opening the chest. We're going to add some movement in here today. So just rounding the back as you exhale. Inhale. Exhale, round. Inhale, open. Exhale, round. Just 3 more here. Exhale, open. Good. Inhale, round. Exhale, open one more time. Good. One more time. Inhale, round. Good. Exhale, open. Okay. All right. That is such a great way to wake up the body once again and just get yourself back into a different mindset than before. So, understanding these body cues are going to be really important moving forward and just, even in conversation with other people, in conversation with yourself. There are so many great tools in this book. So I highly suggest just looking through some of these, and you can totally use these as resources when you see clients for whatever coaching you want to do. And remember, the coaching that we do here through the Somatic Nurse Coach certification is all skills that should be able to enhance the current coaching you're doing as well, or with your clients that you're currently interacting with. This isn't meant to be kind of a standalone certification. It is meant to enhance the gifts that you already are capable of that you might just know that you didn't have yet. So I look forward to seeing you guys next week. I'll see you live on Tuesday. And tomorrow, don't forget, we have Laura Solomon coming in and giving us a really great workshop tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I will also put that in our community here and share that with you guys too. All right, I hope you have a wonderful and beautiful rest of the week, and I will see you guys back here on Tuesday. Have a good one. Peace.